Some things just go together, like popcorn and movies, mornings and coffee, New York and the Statue of Liberty. I bet you can't imagine Paris without its Eiffel Tower, or India without its pearly white Taj Mahal. Well, you might have to adjust to a new picture of the world, because these and many other iconic landmarks will probably disappear in the next decades. And before you jump in a taxi to the airport to see them all, let's make a list first. The symbol of Paris has been there since 1889. The tower wasn't supposed to last for centuries. They planned to remove it 20 years later. So for a lady of her age, the most famous madam is doing pretty well. But since it's made of iron, her most dangerous foe is corrosion. And if they put the tower in a protective case, it wouldn't look that beautiful, right? So it's standing there, in the open, exposed to water and air, slowly oxidizing. The people in charge know about it, but they just keep putting a new layer of paint on the tower once every 7 years. It got a $65 million makeover before the 2024 Olympics in Paris, but critics say it's not enough to solve the rusting problem. Another thing that's bothering the tower is the wind, which makes it vibrate slightly. And then there's the sun that heats up the eastern, southern, and western sides of the tower one by one and makes them expand. When the night falls, they go back to their original state. So the top of the tower follows an almost circular curve every 24 hours. Because of these movements, the metal in the structure weakens, and it can become a problem in the long run. It's like folding an iron wire again and again. It will break at some point. It took around 20 years and around 20,000 workers to complete one of the most beautiful constructions in the world, the Taj Mahal. It was supposed to have a twin brother in black, but that never happened. Sadly, it's not the worst news about this marble beauty, as there are debates on its demolition. Yep, one of the new 7 wonders of the world could disappear because of excessive vehicles, burning of coal, dust storms, and forest fires that make the air around it bad, to say the least. It has made the once gleaming white marble gradually lose its vibrance and change its color to various shades of yellow, brownish black, and green. There is one more problem. Thousands of tiny insects that appreciate the beauty of the Taj Mahal so much they chose to make it their residence. They come straight from the Yamuna River. That's not the cleanest in the world. And products of their active life in the form of excrement corrode and stain the marble. The second problem is that India's Supreme Court has threatened to shut it down unless the people in charge offer some steps to preserve the World Heritage Site. I hope they find some solution, or else, where will the 8 million tourists who come here every year spend their vacation? If you've ever been to Egypt, you must have at least one photo of yourself pretending to be holding the legendary Sphinx, right? Or am I the only one? Anyway, the Sphinx in Giza has already lost his nose, and we still don't know how or why it happened. And with centuries of erosion of limestone going under its belt, the famous giant could disappear altogether in our lifetimes. There's some serious natural rainwater runoff going on into the west part of the Sphinx because of its surroundings. Rains are rare in Egypt, but they do happen once in a while. And water isn't the only problem for Sphinx. Since it's sitting proudly in the desert, the high winds are also a big deal. They're causing something like sandblasting, like an invisible hand with a tool that's rooting that delicate, grainy substance. And then there's also groundwater. It wicks up into porous rocks from the salt in the soil. Moisture isn't doing such massive constructions any good. The Sphinx and the pyramids have survived for centuries, but if the elements work against them in an unlucky combo, these human-made giants will have no chance of winning. The Statue of Liberty has already had a major makeover since it was first unveiled in 1886. It used to be a shiny brown color, just like a penny. 20 years later, it changed its color to green. Lady Liberty is covered with hundreds of thin copper sheets. When copper reacts with air, it naturally forms a protective layer called vitagrease. This layer protects what's under it from corrosion, and that's why statues and other things made of copper, brass, and bronze can't last so long. When the statue first turned green, people in authority decided to paint it all over. But the public didn't love the idea. Experts confirmed they shouldn't repaint it because removing the protective layer would mean destroying the statue. Lady Liberty still gets a decent amount of rain, so the chemical reactions continue. The not-so-clean air around it only speeds up those reactions. New York City does what it can to protect its symbol. Let's see if it's gonna be enough to save it. When Machu Picchu in Peru was first discovered in 1911, its explorer thought he had managed to find the lost city of the Inca. Several decades later, it turned out that it wasn't the same city. But it doesn't make it any less cool, right? The stones making up the buildings are cut so precisely and sit together so tightly that you can't even insert a credit card between them. It has saved the city from serious earthquakes, which are common here. The buildings just dance through all the shaking and then go back into place. But there's another serious problem, and it's called people. About 4,000 tourists come here every day, and they're physically ruining the ancient ruins. Local authorities are trying to stop it and suspend visits to some temples and structures. When the site was closed completely for a month, many locals dependent on tourism got really angry and spoke up against it. So they need to find some solution to save Machu Picchu without shutting it down. Hundreds of thousands of tourists try to push it back up for cool photos, but can anyone really save the Leaning Tower of Pisa from falling over? It started tilting southward shortly after the beginning of construction back in the 12th century because of the soft ground under its foundations. That soil couldn't handle the weight of the heavy white marble and started to go down. The builders decided to get creative and add each next floor at an angle to fix the tilt, but it didn't help. Once 3 of the 8 floors were finished, the tilt was so obviously getting worse that they had to pause the construction process to solve the problem. When the tower was finally ready, it tilted at 1.6 degrees. Almost 3 centuries later, an architect working on it wanted to show the world the beautiful carvings on its base. He shouldn't have done it because it made the construction tilt like never before. In the middle of the 20th century, when the tower was already leaning at 5.5 degrees, Italian officials decided it wasn't funny anymore and invited experts to save it from completely falling over. They came up with an idea to extract soil from beneath the tower's northern foundation to put it back in an upright position. This method worked and helped to pull the tower against the direction of the tilt. The team had to repeat the process over several years at 41 different locations around the tower. I'd probably give up after the 3rd location as I have zero patience. In May of 2008, the tower finished straightening and finally stood still. Experts think it will last a while now, but if a strong earthquake intervenes, its future might not be that bright.
That's it for today. So hey, if you pacified your curiosity, then give the video a like and share it with your friends. Or if you want more, just click on these videos and stay on the bright side.